We're going to talk more about this now with Michael Kazin, a history professor at Georgetown University and the author of the book, What It Took to Win, A History of the Democratic Party. He joins me now live from Washington. Michael, welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So what's your take on Mamdani's campaign so far? He does have a lot of momentum at the moment. The polls are putting him in the lead. Why has he seen so much seeming success already?
Well, the clip you just showed touches on some of the reasons, I think. He's articulate, he's eloquent, he's charismatic, he's good at social media. But most importantly, he's talking about issues that most New Yorkers care about, which is that the city of New York has become very expensive to live in, even for ordinary working class people, especially for them. So he wants to make buses free. He wants to get the price of housing down. He wants to give childcare to every parent for a child up till 5 years old. And all this is very attractive, clearly, to a lot of people who are otherwise might be wary of someone who calls himself a socialist.
But as you said, these are things that speak particularly to New Yorkers. If he were to win, what would that change for the Democratic Party itself in the U.S.?
Well, it would obviously give a shot in the arm to the progressive side of the Democratic Party, to people like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, others around the country, especially in big cities where the kind of campaign he's run could be very effective elsewhere. At the same time, the Democratic Party is a big tent party and it's a big coalition. And a socialist would not be able to win election in, say, a state like Ohio or Texas. So the Democrats will continue to have to argue with one another about the direction of the party. That's not going to change.
Right. So and not every Democrat, of course, is behind Mamdani either. But would you say that perhaps his rise in the polls is a shift in the Democratic Party, perhaps toward a more economically populist platform? Or is this, again, specifically just a New York thing?
Well, I think that's certainly true. One of the things the Democrats should have learned from their loss in 2024 and from their loss to Donald Trump generally is that they have lost a lot of working class voters, not just white working class voters, but Latinos and some African American working class voters too. And what most of those voters care about really is what the government will do for them, rather than some of the cultural issues which have been very important to Democrats in recent years. So I think this shows a shift, which is not just happening among progressives, it's happening among many moderates as well, that they want to focus on the economy. They want to focus on the ways inflation, high costs, fear about losing jobs to artificial intelligence has affected a lot of people in the United States.
Right. And it does seem like the Democrats in the states need to not just be against Trump, but for something as well, which can be perfectly embodied by that economic need. Can we draw any parallels, would you say, between Zohran Mamdani and a previous Democrat who seemed to come out of nowhere in the past? I'm speaking about Barack Obama.
Well, that was a very different time, of course. And Barack Obama won the nomination because he opposed the Iraq War, and also because he won the election because there was a Great Recession that began during the campaign in 2008. So things aren't good economically in America now, but we're not in a recession, at least not yet. But certainly the sense that this is a young, good-looking guy who comes out of nowhere, who also has a strange name. Of course, Obama used to spend a lot of time talking about, someone with a strange name can actually be elected president. And of course, Mamdani's a Muslim, and Obama's father was raised as a Muslim. So there's similarities there. The difference, of course, is that Mamdani is a democratic socialist, and Barack Obama never ran under that label. In fact, was very concerned to not appear too left-wing. So there's a big difference there.
Right. And just to clarify, Mamdani, of course, cannot run for president of the United States because he's not born in the U.S. But just going back in history, have there been other moments in the Democratic Party, particularly, where there were more leftist figures, perhaps someone like Mamdani, who were able to change the entire party's orientation?
One of them figure maybe some of you readers haven't heard of, listeners haven't heard of, was a guy named William Jennings Bryan, who ran in 1896 and also in 1900, also 1908 for the presidency for the Democrats. And he really made the Democrats into a much more an economic populist party. He supported labor unions. He supported crop subsidies for farmers. He supported a whole range of sort of an income tax, which the United States didn't have yet, for example. And he really did change the Democratic Party from what had been most conservative party economically in the country in many ways to the more left-wing party economically. He wasn't a socialist, but he was a progressive in American terms. And really, many of the ideas he has, like taxing the rich more, like supporting labor unions, are things that Mamdani, of course, supports as well.
Michael, just very briefly before you go, you yourself are a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, like Zohran Mamdani. There's so much political division in the states at the moment, even within the Democratic Party itself, as we were saying before. How do you think America moves away from this culture of contempt, you might say, and more toward a culture of compromise?
Great question. Historically, the only way that ever happens is if one party becomes the majority party, and the other party has to sort of go along and compromise with ideas, with proposals that they'd rather not compromise with. And we haven't had such a majority party really in 50 years since the Democrats ceased being the majority party. Right now, the Republicans, of course, have very slight majorities in the House, somewhat larger one in the Senate, uh, and no presidential candidate since Obama in 2012 has won a majority of the popular vote. So unfortunately, I don't really see a compromise culture coming back to America anytime soon, unless one party or the other wins a large majority and it compels the other party to work with it.
All right, Michael, thanks for that. Michael Kazin, Georgetown professor, speaking to me live from Washington. Thanks so much.